Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Now, I love unusual repertoire. You know that. I have spent my life promoting unusual repertoire, but every so often some unusual repertoire comes around, which is an unusual disappointment, musically, not performance-wise. And this is one of those cases. It's Ernst von Dohnányi's The Veil of Pierrette ballet, Der Schleier der Pierrette. Now, I've heard excerpts from this. There's like a suite and some other things, and it wasn't bad. And I was really looking forward to the complete ballet because I like this composer. I mean, he wrote that wonderful suite in F sharp minor and two fabulous symphonies and the variations on a nursery tune and Roralia Ungarica and symphonic minutes. It's just lots of good stuff. He was a very talented composer and an 80-minute ballet. I'm like, wow, this is going to be really great, right? And the scenario is by Arthur Schnitzler. I mean, you know, the fin de siècle Vienna gloom and doom guy, Arthur Schnitzler. I said to myself, it's got to be fabulous. It's got to be decadent and sensual and fantastical. And, I was, like Schrecker and those fun people. Well, turns out it's just a monumental bore. Unbelievably dull and dreary and droopy and uninteresting. I was shocked, absolutely shocked, stunned that Dohnányi could commit such a musical solecism. And I just got to read you the plot, and you'll know exactly why this is such a droopy character. I mean, it does have a character called the Fat Pianist. I mean, that gives me something to hope for. But, oh, wow. So the characters are, let's see, it's commedia dell'arte, as you might have imagined, but really droopy commedia dell'arte. You've got Pierrot and Pierrette's father and mother, and Arlecchino, Pierrette's bridegroom, and Fred, I don't know who Fred is, and Florestan, and Annette, and Allumette, and a gigolo, a young gentleman, and a fat pianist, a second pianist, a violinist, a clarinetist, Pierrot's servant, and old gentlemen, old ladies, young gentlemen, young ladies, as wedding guests. That's the deal. And like I said, this is 80 droopy minutes. I mean, you just look at the tempo indications here. It's a dead giveaway. Moderato, allegretto, waltz, which is not very quick, and then adagio, and then molto moderato, and then largamente, and then there's another waltz, and then moderato, allegro moderato. Get it? It's just unbelievably droopy. And here we have the plot, which is wonderful. And we're just going to do the plot. And when I'm done with the plot, you'll know why you want to avoid this. Here we go. You ready? The music opens gloomily and sinisterly. I didn't hear the sinister part. The gloom I got. Making it clear in the very first bars that this is not a cheerful and entertaining story. No kidding. But a black version of classical commedia dell'arte. Well, I didn't really hear that part either. The plot resume sketched here follows the guide to the work by John Brandt of 1910, which was published separately and also deals in depth with the development of the music. Yeah, right, sure. Okay. The most important motives running through the entire piece are those of the three main protagonists, Pierrot, Pierrette, and Arlecchino. Scene 1 is set in Pierrot's room. Standing in front of a picture of Pierrette, he despairs that she has been wedded to Arlecchino, although she is in love with him. Pierrot's friends appear and abandon themselves to merry dancing, unimpressed by his mood. Missed that part. Wasn't so much merry dancing there. When Pierrot gets furious, they leave him. Then Pierrette appears, dressed in a bridal gown and with a myrtle garland and a veil. Get it? The veil of Pierrette. She pulls out a phial of poison, suggesting that they both commit suicide whilst he thinks they should escape together. Finally, she manages to persuade him. During a final supper together, he empties a glass of the poison, but at the last moment she lacks the courage to do so. So Pierrot is dead and she runs away. That's scene 1, and it's all downhill from there. In scene 2, it starts with a lively ceremonial wedding waltz at Pierrette's parents' house. And as I said, lively is relative when it comes to this piece. It really is. Gigolo, the dance master, wants to form a quadrille in which Arlecchino is to dance with the bride. It's only now that her absence is noticed. Okay, everybody looks for her, whilst Arlecchino loses his temper and starts smashing glasses, bottles, and the musician's instruments. When Pierrette appears, she refuses to give any explanation. Instead, she merely wants to dance, naturally. However, she freezes in horror when Pierrot's apparition suddenly appears, only visible to her. In a state of shock, she seeks to hide her face in her veil, but she dropped it in Pierrot's room. So there's no place to hide her face. I mean, she could pick up a vase, she could pick up a napkin, she could pick up a plate, she could hide behind the roast beef, she could hide. But no, she's missing her veil, hence the title. Now Arlecchino wants to know where the veil is. I mean, that's the critical point, of course, not the fact that Pierrot's dead or Pierrette's behaving strangely. They all want to know where the veil is. Pierrette beholds the dead Pierrot in front of her, draped in the veil, and seeks to get hold of it. But Pierrot hides in it, retreating. She rushes after him, followed by Arlecchino. And that's scene 2. Now, in scene 3, the thrill-packed climax of this tawdry tale, let's see, Pierrette and Arlecchino are in Pierrot's room. She takes the veil and wants to leave again, but Arlecchino asks her insistent questions. This is a ballet, remember, so they're asking insistent questions like this. That's how it goes, right? Okay. He spots Pierrot on the floor. I mean, they're looking for the veil, but they forget to notice that Pierrot is like lying there dead, right? Okay. Spots Pierrot on the floor and stiffens when he notices that the former is dead. Oh, there's a surprise, isn't it? He forces her to tell him the whole story, finally tormenting her by sitting up Pierrot's body and reconstructing their farewell supper together. Ugh. Then he leaves the room, locking Pierrette in with the dead man. A kind of mystical union takes place. This is German romanticism, after all. It's full of mystical unions. Hallucinating, Pierrette dances around her lover until her strength wanes and she drops down dead next to him. Ugh. What can I say? I really, ugh. Now, normally I would play samples, but what's the point of playing boring samples of an 80-minute long boring ballet just to show you how boring it is? Instead, I'm sorry, because it's on Capriccio. I have permission to take play samples, but you're going to have to take my word for it. You really are. I mean, the performance with the ORF Vienna Radio Symphony Orchestra under Ariane Matiach is okay, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's just, I could not believe how droopy and uninteresting this music is. All I can say is that it probably suits the subject matter perfectly well. It's a wonderful one of those fin de siècle stories, although I have to say, I mean, yes, it's Arthur Schnitzler and it's, he's a big deal, right? And that's who it was. Yes, Arthur Schnitzler. And, but seriously, I mean, how much seichel, smarts, as they say in Yiddish, how much did it take for Mr. Schnitzler to write that? I mean, couldn't any of us have come up with something equally dismal, like during lunch or on the toilet or somewhere? I don't know. This one just went completely past me. So maybe it's my loss. Maybe one of you have heard this thing and you think it's a masterpiece. I would really be curious to know. It's very similar in its miserable, gray, sort of shapeless and melodically uninteresting way to Sibelius's Scaramouche, which has kind of a similar conceptual plot. It's a lot of boring, dreary people talking about how bored and dreary they are, and they die. Well, here's the commedia arte del version of that. Commedia dell'arte del version? I don't know. What did I just say? I don't know. I don't care. You shouldn't either. Keep on listening, folks, but to other things. Take care.